Hi all, thanks for having you with us today in this workshop. My name is Ehsan Alrababah. I'm the lead solution architect for Lookout in the Middle East, Turkey and Africa region. So in today's workshop, we will be covering the topic of how to optimize your current security strategy and policy and extend it into the mobile fleet in order to protect your internal employees as well as the customers that are consuming your services via mobile apps and services. So let's start. So the first, as discussed, we will be going through a couple of topics. So we will be covering two use cases related to the Lookout solutions and portfolio. These two are some of the very well used use cases around the mobile security. Of course, we have many others, but we believe that these two are at very high level of relevancy in the region. So we'll start with the first one, which is about the integration of Lookout mobile endpoint security with the Office 365 apps. We'll explain how Lookout will complement and enhance the security posture of Microsoft services and some other cloud services as well, but mainly Microsoft Office 365 apps, how we do integrate with the container-based approach to provide a better security, visibility, posture, and to protect the data of the organization while not interfere with their end users' privacy in the same way that MDM is doing. The second topic, we will be covering the Lookout in Application Protection Suite. And in that area, we will be covering multiple things. We'll start talking about what are the current threat vectors that could affect your customer-facing application, in which ways, and then we'll explain how Lookout in App Suite modules will help you address these security gaps and these risks, so you will have a better visibility and better protection for your customers, and then you will mitigate any bad consequences of any customer data breach through your mobile application. So without further ado, we'll start with the first topic, which is Lookout with Microsoft Intune, and talk about how you can do a proper application management and proper security without the need to use an MDM, and how Lookout plus Microsoft Intune will help you address this issue. So just a quick background here about Lookout and Microsoft partnership. So Lookout and Microsoft partnership started a few years back, since 2015, with a lot of introducing a lot of cutting edge integrations. So Lookout was the first one to integrate with the Microsoft Azure Active Directory. Lookout also was the first one to introduce integration with the Intune MDM, which moved right now to be Microsoft Endpoint Manager. And also we were the first one to integrate with Microsoft Defender ATP, and that will help the customers address the different security needs among the mobile as well as the legacy endpoints from a single pane of glass and from a single dashboard. And finally, we were also the first one to introduce the major topic today for our workshop, which is the continuous conditional access for the Microsoft Office 365 app. And that's really important because, as we know, the majority of the users of Office 365 services are coming from unmanaged variant of their devices. So you need to have a proper security model for these unmanaged variants to help protect against all the possible threats. And as we will see in the next few slides, you will see that some of the areas will be addressed by Microsoft side through the DLP part, and some of them will be addressed by Lookout, especially related to the malicious activities and the phishing attacks, and how we complement each other as a jointly offered solution. So before jumping into the actual solution and how Lookout works with Microsoft, we will just have a quick recap on how the continuous conditional access work with Lookout. So you will have Lookout mobile security, and then Lookout for work app that's installed on a mobile device, whether it's owned by the corporate or it's a personal device, bring your own device model. And that solution will work usually in conjunction with Lookout Security Cloud, which is the backbone of Lookout security technologies for many reasons. It has like the biggest data set in mobility these days, and it has a patented algorithms, patented technology to detect 0 days and unknown threats, whether they are device or app-based threats or even phishing domains. And we have a track record about detecting such threats. I'm happy to answer any of them, like to have some sort of background about some of our discoveries. And what will happen based on the security posture that is evaluated by the Lookout solution here, Lookout Mobile Endpoint Security, along with the Lookout Security Cloud, and through our integration with different identity providers. For today, we can talk about Azure Active Directory. You can talk about basically any identity provider that is being used widely in the cloud services, and cloud authentication. And based on the evaluation of the security posture, there will be one of two results. If the device comply with the organization data or organization policy, then the device will be allowed to access the corporate data, cloud corporate resources, whether they are Office 365, whether they are G Suite, whether they are, for example, other cloud services like Salesforce and others. Now, if the device is not compliant, then it will be denied access to such resources. The beauty about Lookout is not only about like a one-time conditional access, it's about a continuous evaluation for the security posture of the device. So if the device was compliant and then for whatever reason become non-compliant device, we will have our integration with the identity provider to block the access to the cloud resources. So that's why this is very important. And this is where the industry is moving these days, about conditional based access, about zero trust model. So you have to keep evaluating the security posture of the device before granting access to critical resources, whether they are on-premise or, most importantly, with the case of the cloud services, whether they are public or cloud services. Now, just to recap how we do integrate with the Office 365 applications. So what's usually happening when you push the Office 365, name it like, for example, Microsoft Outlook, Microsoft Teams, which is, I believe it's one of the most popular apps these days because of the COVID and the work from home situation. So once you push it, you can apply some sort of app policies related to the protection of the app, the data within the app. And that app policy is related to things like restrict copy paste, restrict data exchange between the apps, and then apply some sort of loss prevention. You can tell like where the app can back up the data, etc. Also, you can just add another layer of two-factor authentication, identity solutions there, and you can enable like this container without the need to have it as a managed with an MDM. Now, once you integrate with Lookout, Lookout will give you a better visibility into things like phishing attacks. And the main issue with the mobile, the phishing attack capabilities are not restricted to the corporate email. I can still, as a hacker, target the user via his personal email, via his messaging applications, via his social platform, WhatsApp, text messages. And that's why it's really important to have a very strong and very comprehensive solution to protect the phishing against the mobile threats and mobile solutions. Also, what we will what Lookout will offer for the Office 365 suite will offer custom policies against app threats, like whether they are malicious application, risky apps, leaky application, privacy intrusive application. You can add some sort of compliance policy around these topics. Comprehensive device attacks, especially when we talk about unknown jailbreak, unknown root techniques. When we talk about advanced routing, root hiding, or jailbreak blocking techniques, we will be able to cover them, plus the network-based attacks. And you can do some sort of remediation guidance for the users on how to do the remediation so they can restore their compliance status and then restore their access. Because remember from the previous slide, Lookout usually works with the Azure AD environment, with the Intune MAM environment to provide a conditional access. So when Lookout evaluate that the device is not compliant, then the user will lose access to the corporate data. If Lookout, like the user, if the user remediate the threat and they restore the compliance access, the compliant status, they need to restore the access to the Office 365 and to the corporate resources. So this is where Lookout and Intune usually they will work together in order to provide you with a full comprehensive experience that will enable the user to work and to be productive on the mobile devices using the Office 365 apps without compromising the security posture and the security policy of the organization. We'll start talking now how we do the continuous conditional access and a quick technical overview. So the first thing, like imagine that you're a new user that you need to download Outlook, for example, or you are an existing user but you get the policy enforced on you. So the moment you open the application and before being allowed to access the corporate data and the corporate email, the Office 365 email, after evaluating the security policy and the Intune policy, the MAM policy that applied to the Outlook application as a managed app here, you will see that the user will be required to download Lookout for Work. So if they don't have Lookout for Work on their devices, they will not be having access to your email, to the attachments, to whatever information there. And then if there is also, after they download Lookout for Work, they will be required to activate the app. And if there is a security issue on the device, based on the conditional access configuration that you have implemented in your environment, you will see that the user will be instructed to go to the Lookout for Work app in order to see what is the issue there and resolve them. And after resolving them, only will be able to have access to the Office 365 emails and resources. As you can see here, just a quick sample. Outlook asks the user to go for Lookout for Work app. Lookout for Work app showed the user that they have some sort of a Trojan installed on their devices, and they need to remediate that Trojan in order to have access to the corporate email. And as you can see, one of the key messages here that Lookout provide a very clear message to the end user about how to do the remediation, what is the possible threat and risk, not only for your corporate data, but also for his personal data that's existing on the device. So that will help the user do the remediation on themselves. Actually, our own statistics shows that more than 95% within our fleet rate of remediation is done by the users themselves based on these messages. So that's why it's really important for you to consider such a feature in your mobile security platform. So once the user remediates, Lookout will identify that there is no issue here. The user will restore access. Just to explain here, just to recap around the use cases, we will go through a quick video just to show you the whole process, and then you will be able to figure what could be the workflow of onboarding a new user or adding lookout for work into the current Intune MAM policy, application protection policy that you have in place. So what will happen, as you can see, the user is trying to access the Outlook application because lookout for work is not installed. The user will be instructed to download the app. They will have a URL that redirect to the Lookout app in the public Play Store. They will download the application. After they download the app, they will start to interact with the app, but we'll see when the process. Once the user download the app, they will try to open it. They need to do the activation process. So they need to authenticate with their Azure AD credentials, identity, and then this will evaluate, will activate the app. So the user will activate the app, will get the security posture there. Now, once they get the app activated, they will try to go into the Outlook application to have access. And as you can see right now, the user is trying to have access to the app. So here we're asking them just to launch the app to validate the security posture there because Lookout is still not seeing the Outlook is not seeing the Lookout as activated. There's no security check mark here about whether the device has an active Lookout for work instance or not. Now, after we validate this, there was a threat that was reported by the Lookout for Work app, as you will see here right now on the Outlook application. Outlook application will ask the user to remediate the security threat, because right now the device has a security threat, which make it non-compliant with the corporate policy about having access to the corporate resources. So the user will get a message that your access has been blocked because the device failed to meet the security requirement and the security posture here. So once this evaluated, the user will be required to go for Lookout for Work app to validate the security posture of the app, and then try to restore the access based on the remediation action here. So the user remove the malicious application from the device. And as you can see, once the analysis is done, the user will restore access to the Outlook services and to their email. Okay. Now, what is the value that Lookout adds to Microsoft Intune here? So first of all, as we explained first, with Microsoft Intune MAM policy, application protection policy, you can enforce settings related to the data leakage prevention for your apps, related to the copy and paste, for example, related to apply certain data leakage, prevent screenshot, prevent the app backing up the information to, for example, services like Google Cloud, like iCloud, etc. And then you will see whether you can authorize them to have some sort of identity requirement if you need to enforce two-factor authentication. Also, you can have a container base without the need for an MDM. What Lookout as a solution here is just to help you address the phishing attacks on the mobile devices. As we mentioned, it's a big issue on the mobile devices because the phishing service is much higher, much bigger than the legacy desktop and the legacy solutions. You will have protection from variant type of threats related to the application, device, or networks, and you can customize this policy. You'll be able to instruct the user how they can remediate so they restore the access without the involvement of admins, which is really important. And then the whole scenario is just to provide a continuous conditional access for the Office 365 apps based on the security posture and the visibility that lookouts bring into the Azure Active Directory and into the Intune MAM policy here. So the final outcome that with Lookout plus the Microsoft Intune MAM, especially for the use case of bring your own device, when users, they bring their own personal devices, you will have a comprehensive protection against the different type of threats, different variants, whether you are talking about DLP or malware-based threats, phishing-based threats. With Lookout and the Intune MAM, you will have a full protection without the need to be intrusive into the devices of your employees, without the need to have some sort of maybe privacy, what is could be considered by the users as violation for their privacy, for their personal information. With Lookout, you can bridge that gap, so you'll not be able to track the device GPS, you'll not be able to see clear inventory for the apps on the device, you'll not collect any personal identifier like the phone number, like the IMEI of the device, you'll not be able to capture the browsing history, and most importantly, you'll not be able to remotely wipe the whole device. So with Lookout plus Intune MAM, you will get comprehensive coverage, equivalent or even more to the one that you get from the MDM, but without the need to implement a profile that could be seen by the users as an intrusion for their privacy and for their personal devices. Now we will move to the second topic here, which is the Lookout, or the second use case, talking about how Lookout will help you address the mobile risks for your customer-facing application, and that's really important. So we'll start with the topic about the mobile threat landscape, and in that area we will cover the first of all, what are the threat vectors that could compromise certain data from the customer-facing apps, from your apps that are released to your customers. So we'll start with the first one, which is really important. So we're talking mainly here about the runtime threats. And in the runtime threats, we're talking about the environment that is hosting your application. So regardless about the security of your application, the protocols that are used there, if they are running with a certain environment, the attacker could target your application by targeting this environment and by leveraging some of the weaknesses that are in this environment. So samples, if you run your application on a rooted or jailbroken devices, then the risk will be elevated on your app. So ideally, you should at least know that this device is running, or this app is running on a rooted or jailbroken device, and then you need to take an action, depends on the regulations, depends on the environment you have. So the majority of the customers, entities in the region, and because of regulations, whether central banks, whether other regulators, they mandate that apps are not running on a rooted device or jailbroken device. And that's really important. But even if you need to run it, usually other customers, what they are doing, they factor this in a risk formula. So the device that's rooted or jailbroken will provide or will have a higher risk factor than the devices that are not rooted or jailbroken. And then you can take this risk formula into other decision criteria, I would say. So that's the first threat vector. The second threat vector, which is related to some sort of malware, and that malware will vary from Trojans, surveillanceware, certain botnets, and attacks, and that should affect the mobile devices even if they are not rooted or jailbroken. For example, banking Trojan on Android would steal certain information from the several banking applications without the need to have the device as rooted or jailbroken. Network attacks, if you have man-in-the-middle attacks that could intercept the communication and look for it, even though that there is some sort of valid security countermeasure, which is the certificate binning here, but still it's one of the threat vectors. And the final one, which is the tampering attacks, whether this could be happening through hooking framework, code injection, certain emulators, overlay attacks with fake keyboards, fake screens. So all of these items could lead to one of these consequences or a combination of them. So as attacker, they might manage to, for example, steal the credentials of the user in a way or another, compromise certain data within the app, maybe, and then leak them to third party like attacker or media or whatever. And especially if you are talking about financial apps like mobile wallet, mobile banking apps, this could lead also to some sort of a fraud and fraudulent transaction. And if that happens on an application for the organization, you will see that this could lead to some sort of penalties, financial losses, or even some sort of a brand damage, the reputation, the damage for the brand reputation. Okay. Now, as we mentioned first, like the first threat vector, which is really important, at least to have the visibility, it is the device compromise. And the device compromise, we're talking about rooted jailbroken devices, but there are many, many variants there. And what is available currently in the market in most cases is just the coverage for the basic type of jailbreak and root techniques. So we are seeing many other variants. Some of them are commercially available, such as root hiding techniques, some of them related to systemless rooting techniques, such as Magis, which could evade the detection that is built into the app or some other techniques. And with Lookout, we'll be able to help you address all of these coverage, like whether we talk about basic root, basic jailbreak, advanced root and advanced jailbreak that are combined with some sort of hiding or cloaking techniques, or even zero-day targeted non-public jailbreak and non-public root. Additional threat that you usually look into it, which is usually the hooking frameworks. And that's usually what will happen, like when you run your device, your app on a compromised device, that's compromised device has some sort of hooking framework and debuggers. They will be able to hook into the app, analyze everything into the structure of the app, the API used by the app, the memory usage of the app. They can also inject certain code into the app, and that code could lead to multiple variants. This will help the attacker in multiple ways. They can intercept the communication of the users. They can disable certain protection capabilities within the app, and they can, for example, capture the username and password or the credentials that were provided by the user to the original application. It will help them with analyzing the app, do some sort of the repackaging for the app. As you can see here, that's a summary for a use case, like for a dummy app, dummy banking app here that does not have any sort of protection, where the app is running on a rooted device. And based on that, the attacker was able to hook into the app, inject some sort of malicious code into the application, and that malicious code, as you can see here, just tried to manipulate the UI of the application and introduce some sort of devil head in the background of the app. Now, as I mentioned previously, if the attacker managed to inject the code inside the app, they can do many bad things, including the one that you see, which is the devil head in the UI of the app. It could be like about disabling the root protections, disabling the certificate binning of the app, intercept the user input data through some sort of keyboards, fake ones. Also, it could be about just like use it to identify the structure of the application, try to build some sort of fake version of your application. through some variants of reverse engineering against the app, and that could lead to other variety of attacks here. Now, this is another sample for an attack that does not require rooted or jailbroken device. So you will have your, for example, dummy mobile banking application, and that dummy mobile application installed on an unrooted, non-compromised device, but that device has some sort of a banking Trojan. And that banking Trojan usually use multiple techniques. So without lookout, without proper in-app protection solution, you will see that the users or the users will not realize that there is a threat that could lead to capture their credentials, do some sort of fraudulent transaction, and that could lead to some financial loss here. With lookout, the transaction will be not allowed for the user. Even you can configure it in a way not to interact with the app. You will have a better visibility. You can show this to the user, and you can prevent such fraudulent transaction. So one of the most used techniques with the malicious applications, banking Trojans mainly, it's the screen overlay attack. And there are many variants with the screen overlay. You can use it through process injection, you can use it through task hijacking, but the idea here, like once the original user opened the legitimate application, in a way or another, by exploiting certain vulnerabilities on the OS, represent the user exactly the same layout via another application. So in reality, the malicious app will come on top of the original application without the user noticing this, because it's like a momentary process. And if it's gonna be the same exact layout, the user will be thinking that they are interacting with the original application. They will provide personal information. They will provide credentials, and these credentials will be captured with the users or with the attackers. So as you can see, the user can do some sort of credential harvesting activity. But with lookout, you will be able to protect against the overlay attack. You will be able to notify the user, and also you will be able to identify the actual threats on your backend as a solution or as an organization. For example, here the bank, and then they can take whatever action based on their environment, based on their systems that they have in their infrastructure, I would say. How Lookout will help you address these things? How Lookout will help you like evaluate all these threats and make your application immune against such attacks and such risks. So with Lookout, we provide Lookout in App Suite that comes into two modules. The first module, we name it the Lookout App Defense, which is packaged as an SDK. That SDK will be added to the app during the build process, during the development cycle. And the App Defense product will provide you with visibility and detection for the different variants of the jailbreak and root techniques, including the basic ones that already covered by many other technologies, and moving into the very advanced ones that mainly Lookout can address based on our track record and based on our unique technology here. The second benefit that you will get from the Lookout, which is the malware detection and the classification. Lookout, and based on the fact that we have a data set with more than 120 million apps, we have a very comprehensive classification and categorization for these apps. So all the malicious application will be put into multiple categories based on their risk profile, their behavior. So we'll tell you whether the app is root enabler, whether the app is a Trojan, is it a banking Trojan, is it surveillanceware? And these are like high risk items, but also we'll give you things if it's adware, if it is riskware, which is low risk. So you can even set the proper remediation actions into your environment based on these input and based on these details. Also, the Lookout App Defense will help you look into the network attacks, and it can work with whatever settings you have in place, and these settings will allow you to identify the name of the malicious network, provide some sort of forensics to the end user, and then take this into the next level of data correlation, I would say. With this app defense solution installed within your fleet, you will be able to identify the security posture of the devices, the risk posture, which will make you having a visibility that you don't have right now, and will help you be adaptive into like introducing other sort of controls and techniques into the app, as you can see how this affect the current risk posture that you have. What also Lookout App Defense will help you, we have an API that you can integrate with your backend system. Now, moving to the second component, which we provide as a wrapper, so it's usually a post code implementation. What will provide you with a solid protection against tampering attacks, including reverse engineering, including runtime tampering attacks, including even some sort of data leak protection that we have into the app. And we'll come into more details in the next few slides. So, but before that, what we believe that Lookout provide you with an end-to-end protection against all the risks and threats that you need to address for the runtime and the build time. So that will help the organization have a single source, single solution provider to address all of their needs without the need to, like, for example, have multiple tools, compatibility issues, interoperability issues. So you will have a full protection here with some sort of single interface to deal with any support issues, with any compatibility issues, which is unlikely with the case of Lookout, because we are the providers of both components here. How Lookout App Defense SDK works. So the moment the user download the app that has the SDK, the updated one, the SDK will initialize, it will communicate with Lookout Security Cloud through the API key. They will initialize. After the initialization process, you will have two types of scan. One of the scans is locally on the device, and that's usually looks into the high risk items, like, for example, is the device compromised? Is there any direct malware or a malware that poses a direct threat to the app, such as banking Trojan, such as surveillanceware, keylogger, screen scraper, and this will provide the first result. We also have a very advanced scan, and that advanced scan leverages the Lookout Security Cloud part, where the SDK will send public metadata there, but public telemetry information. These information are non-PII data, so there is no personal information, non-financial data. It's just a public metadata information, just as the app inventory. We'll send it to the cloud. The cloud will apply the algorithms related to the different type of threats, and will identify whether there is a malicious application, whether there is a behavior anomaly here, whether there is a threat that is not covered in the first scan. Based on the result, we provide two remediation flows. The first one from the SDK to the actual application. So the SDK will provide the callbacks to the actual application, and that callbacks will allow for the user to, or to the app to take an action. So Lookout can inform the app if the device is rooted or there is a malicious application, and then the app will take an action, whether I need to allow for the user to have a full access, limited access, or no access at all. The second remediation flow, that's from Lookout backend system into the customer systems. You can consume Lookout API in order to do the correlation with fraud management, risk scoring engine, SIM solution, such platforms. Now, as we said, one of the key components of the Lookout app risk posture or a Lookout app defense, that you will get an app risk posture into the fleet that is running your application. So as you can see here, you will see some sample of the reports or visibility that you will get. You will know how many of the devices that are running your app are iOS, how many of them are Android, and based on that, how many of them are running certain OS version, if there is any vulnerable patch that is existed in these devices, how many of them rooted, jailbroken, how many of these devices have faced the threats, and with the different categories, different variants of the threat, you will see what is the process of protection here and process of enabling the security technique here. So we'll come to the final part here. What the customer like? If you are a banking, healthcare, government entity that is offering their customer services through mobile apps, and these services contain some sort of sensitive data stored or processed by the app, and the sensitive data could be like a personal record, health record, or like the most targeted use case, which is banking app or payment wallet with a financial transaction in place. What you will get from Lookout in app suite that has Lookout plus Prominent technologies together, you will see, first of all, you will get the most comprehensive protection against the different variants of root and jailbreak, including the basic ones, as well as the much more advanced with some sort of hiding technology, cloaking, as well as some of the non-public jailbreak and root techniques. You will get advanced malware detection and classification. So we'll give you a different detection and classification, so you can tailor this into the risk formula that you have. So for example, if you have a banking Trojan or a Trojan surveillanceware app, that will introduce a high risk into your application. So you will need to take more aggressive remediation action, more than the case that you will have, for example, an adware or a riskware. You will have the third benefit here, it's the network attack detection, which either you can combine it with your certificate binning, so you will have more comprehensive forensics telemetry information into the app data. You will get visibility into the app risk posture, as we have seen, how many devices are running my app with certain vulnerable batch, or have seen detection for a banking Trojan. Could this be related to some sort of a fraudulent transaction? So you will be able to have a better visibility. You will be able to measure the risk against your application, and then you will evaluate based on the risk and the business need what I need to do more in order to protect myself and my customers. You will have the most comprehensive protection against the runtime tampering attacks, especially if they are using some sort of hooking frameworks, instrumentation tool like Frida, which is very challenging to protect against, expose any sort of other malware. You can build some sort of customized remediation, and that's because of the callbacks of Lookout app defense. So you can customize based on the need that you have. So imagine that you have multiple apps that you offer for your customers, and these multiple apps are with multiple security platform or multiple security needs. So you can, for example, for certain app, block the access to the app if the device is rooted or jailbroken. With the other app, you can configure it just to provide read-only access, I would say, or some sort of limited transaction, for example, volume, etc. The most comprehensive protection against the different overlay attacks, whether we talk about foreground, background, different variants there, you will have a solid protection against. protection against the reverse engineering, emulator, debugger protection, that all you will get. You will get protection against, for example, reverse engineering with debuggers, additional protection in place. It's very easy to be implemented within the app, whether we talk about the SDK part or the wrapping process. We have a hybrid approach to get use of the Lookout Security Cloud platform and the security architecture there. So we have the cloud first device assisted architecture for both the cases of online and offline protection. And you can take whatever detection threat information that Lookout have, integrate with your fraud detection system in order to enhance the risk scores and the decision criteria within your fraud engine system. And that's all. So if you have any questions, just pass it in the chat window and then we'll be able to answer them. Thank you very much for attending. It's a pleasure being with you all. Thank you.